Fee, fi, fo, fum. This is Creepy Tales. I am George Lunsford and I am your caretaker. Can you guess what we're going to talk about tonight? Yes, we're going to talk about giants. The giants that were in America when the Indians got here. Most of the Indian tribes crossed over from Asia Minor. And they discovered they weren't the first ones here, according to what I've been reading. Especially, we'll start off talking about the Choctaw and the Choctaw, Chickasaw, and the Nasia Indians in a TCHES. I am not good at pronouncing these things. I'm just an old country boy. We're going to talk about what they found first. Now, you think about this. This is back in ancient times, when the land bridge was still there and the Indians come across from Asia Minor over into America. The Cherokee came up from South America up through Mexico and all that up to America. And they get up here and thinking, wow, this is beautiful land, they can live here with no problems, and the only other people they have to deal with is the other tribes. Wrong. What they found was what the Choctaw describes as the Nahullo. Nahullo. They are a race of giants. And to be exact, a race of white giants. These, according to the Choctaw and the Chickasaw, these were white giants. Now, they were going along pretty good till they hit about the Mississippi River, where they run into these white giants. And after an encounter with them in what is now Tennessee, after encounters with them, they found out that not only are they white giants, 10 feet tall, and humongous builds, but they're also cannibals, because they realized after a few encounters with them that they were getting killed and ate. They'd send scouts out to investigate these camps, and they would find the giants eating the people that they had caught or killed, and their heads would be put on sticks around the camp. Now, I don't know about you, but it's probably pretty frightening when you're going to fight something that big with a bow and arrow and a spear, especially when they have spears and rocks and they're that much bigger than you. Well, this continued on. The battling between these Indians and this race of giants, and you'd think that something would happen. There'd be more giants come in, or there'd be less giants. But apparently there were different tribes of giants, and apparently they didn't all get along real well. So this set of giants were eventually either wiped out or run off. I'm thinking probably a combination of both. They probably almost completely wiped them out, because the Chickasaw, the Choctaw, and the others there were so many of them. And apparently these race of giants, they weren't in great numbers in this area. So, you got a bunch of different tribes. They ganged up on the giants, and they basically killed them off or run them off and took their land, just like the white man's accused of taking the Native American land. Anyhow, we won't get into all that right now. Then you got the Indians out in the Great Plains. You have the Comanche, and they run into a different type of white giants. Now, these white giants were different, and I'm going to tell you why. According to Chief Rolling Thunder of the Comanches, during the interview he had with Dr. Yates in 1857. Dr. Donald Panther Yates. He was a researcher and an author of books about Native American history. Of course, you're never going to find anything like this in the history books, because it would just totally confuse everyone. But anyway, this Chief Rolling Thunder in 1857, he described them as innumerable moons ago, a race of white men 10 feet high and far more rich and powerful than any white man now living. It said their range ran from the rising sun to the setting sun. It said they had fortifications on the summits of mountains and protected their populous cities situated in valleys. Now, that's pretty amazing considering the other ones were cannibals. These do not seem to be cannibals. They seem to be very well crafted. They seem to be able to build, able to reason, able to expand out with justice and mercy. And they were more brave warriors and warlike, and they fought with the ancient predecessors of the Comanches, and they ruled over the land. They couldn't beat them. But then, for some reason, the chief said the Great Spirit wiped them out and wiped out their society. But they still say that you can see large mounds of what used to be out there, in the Great Plains where the Comanche were. Then you had the Navajo. The Navajo, once again, they had a different group. These things were called Star Naked people, and there's tons and tons, from what I understand. There's lots of illustrations and writings about the Star Naked people in the Navajo areas out in the west. And these things were a regal race of white giants, and they were endowed with mining abilities, and they would enslave lesser tribes, and they had strongholds throughout the Americas, which means they went all the way down to South America. Now these were miners. They were still warlike, but they knew how to mine. They knew how to extract stuff from the ground. And it's 3 different types of tribes of giant whites that were here in America. Now, I found this extremely interesting because I had never heard this before. And I also found out that they're talked about in other tribes besides these. And why would the tribes talk about it if it wasn't here when they were here, when they got here? I mean, the Indians back then recorded what they saw. They recorded in picture, they recorded in song, they recorded in story. And they passed them down through the ages. And to think that they made that up. They didn't do that. If you know anything about the ancient peoples, you realize that they didn't imagine anything. What they saw is what they recorded. And I keep digging more into this. These giants that the Navajo deal with also was in Peru. Now, the Navajo talk about the Star Naked people. The Peru talk about the Star people. What do you have in Peru? You have the Naztec lines, which I'm not saying anything about them being aliens. I just think it's weird that you have the Naztec lines in Peru, in that area, and you also had giants. To me, that makes sense that they actually built this stuff. That's just me. I don't know. And I still have some other theories, and I'll lay them on you as we go. But that's my thoughts. And I actually started tracing this back, and I wanted to look up more and find out about giants, because we've heard about giants in the Bible. We heard about Goliath, who was a giant. He was 10 feet tall in the stories. There was an ancient ruler in Egypt 4,700 years ago who was a giant. He was a ruler. He ruled over Egypt and was a pretty good sized old boy. you have lots of accounts of giants, even in the Bible. They talk about the Nephilim. I probably said it wrong. Nephilim. It's Nephilim, which I'm sure I said it wrong because I am terrible with these names and stuff. But those were said to be fallen angels. They had lost faith with faith with God, and left heaven to come to earth because the earth women were beautiful, and these fallen angels supposedly mated with them, creating giants that walked the earth. It's mentioned about when the Jews came to the promised land, they were afraid to enter because of the giants. There's tons and tons and tons of information about these giants. Now, you're probably wondering, has he lost his dad, blame mine? No, I'm not. I'm actually using historical information. I'm using biblical information, and I'll give you examples even closer than that. You've got basketball players. Now, they're not giants like that, but they're over 7 feet tall. One of the tallest basketball players was 8.5 foot tall. You've always had big people like Andre the Giant. You've had, you look at wrestling, you've had some big boys in wrestling over 7 foot tall. You look in basketball, a lot of them's over 7 foot tall. Don't dismiss all this. It all ties in together. You go back and look at ancient Egypt. You go back and look at through biblical stuff. You go back and you can actually go and I'm trying to remember where I've seen that they actually have giant bones on display. It seems like it was in South America, at one of the museums in South America. I'll look that up and I'll have to get back to you on that. But I'm here to tell you, when you're talking about giants, think about this. Now, I know a lot of the ones in biblical times were wiped out during the Great Flood. The ones from the fallen angels. That's true. If you believe in the Great Flood, Noah and all that. But there was other fallen angels. Okay, there's other angels come down after the Great Flood, because there's always been something different happening on Earth. And you had a disease called gigantism. I don't think it was a disease. I think it was actually something in their DNA that caused them from their ancestors to get like this, to get this big, to get this massive. That's what Andre the Giant had. I don't believe that. He may have had this so-called disease, but I think it was probably, considering if you look at the maps and stuff, these giants were probably over in France. They were probably over in all of Europe at one time. Where did Andre come from? Andre came from over in that area. And let me give you an example. If you're looking at all this information about giants, and you start checking this stuff out, you're going to be amazed at what you find. The example is everything from a giant emperor in Egypt to Andre the Giant now. There's a connection all the way through to all these different giants. I don't know what it is, but I know there is. I can feel it. And there's got to be something that caused these people to be so much bigger than us. It's not just regular human genetics. There's something else mixed in there. Because there's always been big people. Now, you're going to laugh. You're probably going to think, this guy's lost his flipping mind. But let's look at Bigfoot. Maybe the giants that were attacked by the Indians, maybe all they did was regress into the woods, and they started adapting to their surroundings, which means since they were unable to build fires now because they'd be attacked, they had to grow body hair. they're 9 feet tall. It would explain a lot if you relate the giants of the ancient time of America into being Bigfoot. It makes more sense. They're spread all over the country, just like the giants were when the Indians attacked them, to survive. Humans have an amazing ability to adapt to our surroundings. I think these creatures, these Bigfoot creatures, used to be the giants. I got y'all wondering now, don't I? Now you're wondering, has he lost his mind or does he have a point? I think I have a point. I mean, the giants were here. They fought with the Indians. They were wiped out. But did the Indians kill every single one of them? I don't think so. We didn't kill every single one of the Indians, and they're still here. So why would I think that the Indians would wipe out all the giants? And, you started having reports of Bigfoot later on where all the giants had been seen. Later on through the country where the giants were, Bigfoot showed up a few hundred years after that. So, just got to ask yourself, were the ancient giants in America the Bigfoot of today? Is Bigfoot a descendant of these giants? Makes sense. Giants were all over the world at one time. And so is Bigfoot. So is Yeti. So, think about it. We adapt to our surroundings. You go get your hair cut, you shave. They don't. You have long hair grow. You're able to withstand colder temperatures. Your feet toughen up. You get out and walk around the rocks. You get stronger. You adapt to your surroundings. So, let's put this together. Giants were run off by the Indians. Bigfoots came back. You tell me. You come to me at George Lunsford, WBUZ.com, at WBUZ.com, and you tell me your thoughts on this. I want to know. Next week, we're going to do some interesting stuff, and I'm going to go back to the scary stories. I'm not going to tell you any facts. I'm just going to give you all kinds of monsters. I may talk about some of the myths of the Midwest. I thought you might like to know about the giants and my theory on how the giants are now what I believe are the Bigfoot, developed into the Bigfoot. But you tell me. It's George Lunsford at WBUZ95.com. Oh, and by the way, look for my new book. It will be out August 14th at Amazon and Barnes & Noble. The name of the book is Legends, Myths, Monsters, and Ghosts, Volume 1, the Southern Edition. Check it out. I hope to see you next week. Sleep well, and watch for the Bigfoot, because he could be looking in your window. All I can say is good night and sleep tight.
Hi, this is Nicolas Cage. When you're a teenager, there are a lot of things going on that can produce stress and anxiety. The pressures of school, dating, and the future in general can seem overwhelming sometimes. But there are healthy ways to deal with stress, ways to reduce it and channel your energy in positive directions. And you don't have to do it alone. The Will Rogers Institute has a free booklet with some really helpful information.
For your free copy, visit wrinstitute.org and find us on Facebook and Twitter.
More than 2 million Americans have served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and the Department of Veterans Affairs reports that approximately 11 to 20% of those warriors may have experienced symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. As we recognize PTSD Awareness Month, Real Warriors campaign volunteer Meg Mitchum, a former Army combat medic who served in Iraq, encourages fellow warriors to reach out when they need help.
The hardest step was admitting that I needed help coping with PTSD. Once I did, my command and unit fully supported me, and I was able to get the care I needed. Getting support helped me succeed in the military and now in my civilian career.
If you or a loved one is coping with an invisible wound, resources are available and they work. For more information, visit the Real Warriors campaign at realwarriors.net or call 866-966-1020.
Welcome to Creepy Tales. This is George Lunsford. I am your caretaker. Just a little story I wanted to throw in tonight, just for general purposes. Happened down in South Carolina. It's about a white dog ghost. Back in the 1800s, there was a man going around, door-to-door salesman, and he was in a small town in South Carolina. And he was a salesman, and something happened while he was in this town, and someone was murdered. So the townspeople, not knowing who did it, decided, hey, had to be that door-to-door salesman. So they chased him down. They cornered him right outside of a cemetery by a tall tree. And as this posse rode in on top of this vigilantes rode in on top of this salesman, he tried to stand his ground, but he was just outnumbered. While his dog started attacking people. This big white dog started attacking these people. Well, they shot it, and it still kept trying to attack. They shot it again, and the dog crawled off into the woods. Well, they took and hung the old boy. And just hung him on that tree and left him. Well, the next day, they come out to take the body down, and the dog was there underneath the body. And he started trying to protect his master hanging in a tree, and he tried to attack, and they shot it and killed it. So he left. Well, they didn't go back for several days, and then they found out that it was somebody in the town that killed this person. So to hide what they had done, they decided to go cut the salesman down and bury his body and get rid of any kind of evidence. They get back out there and they go to cut the body down, but there's no dog body. They cut the body down of the salesman, and what's left of him hadn't already fell out of the tree from rot. But they never found anything of the dog. They didn't find bones. They didn't find anything. They took this salesman's body, they threw it in a grave real quick, and threw a little bit of a tombstone up there, and left it. Didn't really say much on tombstone, didn't give a name or nothing. Well, later on, every one of the people that was involved in the hanging of this salesman started seeing and having encounters with a white dog. It would be there out of nowhere. And each one of the people met a gruesome death. And the last one, I found it extremely interesting. The last one that was involved with the hanging, they seen a white dog, and his daughter went out to the dog. And the guy went to find out what happened to his daughter, and the only thing that he could find out was that she was following a white dog into the woods, and she was never heard from again. The guy went mad. He basically sobbed. He sobbed himself to death over the loss of his daughter by this ghost dog that roamed for vengeance of his master. His master who was innocent, by the way. But every one of them paid the price with their lives and their sanity. This has been a story from Creepy Tales. I am George Lunsford. And remember, don't accuse the wrong person, or vengeance may come to you. Be careful. Don't pet the white dog.